Christian parenting.
I think people think, oh, I've done a great thing. I'm sure you get it. I've done
Yeah,
such a great thing for them. Like, it's not that at all. It's like
right.
you want to reiterate, like, there is beauty in grief and adoption, and it doesn't start with beauty, it starts with grief,
Yeah.
but it's also so beautiful. It's just it's a hard thing to explain, but
Yes.
it's changed my life in understanding God's love for sure.
Hey, sweet families, welcome back to the Call to Love podcast. I am so grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with us, where, as you know, we every episode lean into the practical, the clinical, and always, most importantly, the biblical aspects of the foster care and adoption callings. And I got to tell you, one of the biggest questions that I get from families who are either exploring this calling or they are new in this calling is, are there resources for kids? What can I read to my kids? What can I do to help start conversations that I really don't know how to start? And so I am always thrilled when I get to meet the authors of children's books that are specific to adoption and foster care. And so I am so excited to welcome today's guest, Rachel Van Kluyve. She has just released a beautiful new children's book related to adoption. She is a Nashville-based author, designer, mom of four, and a believer who's on mission to use her platform to advocate for adoption. So, Rachel, I'm excited to dive into all of these things with you. Welcome. Thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So y'all, I just got to be real. It's a Monday when we're recording this, and Rachel and I are just trying to keep it all together as our kids are scattered everywhere
Yep.
and our animals. And we just want to sit together and talk about Jesus and adoption and the work that he's doing. So, Rachel, let's start there. Tell us about your beautiful family
Sure.
and how adoption came to be a part of your story.
Well, adoption became my story when I was 11 years old. I remember specifically sitting in church, exactly the row I was sitting on, and seeing some kind of promotional video for, a donation to, I don't know if it was Compassion or some kind of organization like that. And I just, right then, I knew that I needed to adopt, and I carried it with me. Even when I started dating my husband, we met at church. So I was 15 and he was 18, and anyway, we've been together ever since. But he
Oh,
knew,
wow.
even going into dating, that I wanted to adopt one day. And fast forward, all these years, and we did. But our story was a little different. I had my first son, and then had a little bout of postpartum depression, and then waited 5 years to have my second son, because I didn't think that I even wanted more children after that. And it was a
Yeah.
it was a redemption story. Um, I went through a lot during those few years, but then we had our second son, and I thought that was it. But then that little whisper of adoption was still there, and us wanting a girl. And long story short, 5 years later, we adopted a girl, and then within a 2 year span, adopted another girl. So adoption's always been there. Um, at certain points in my life, I didn't think it would happen, but then it was like the Lord was like, "Hey, don't forget this. Here's two." So
Yeah.
now we have two adopted daughters and two biological sons.
That's amazing. And you're homeschooling and authoring books and designing and all of the things.
Yeah,
Girl, how do you balance it all?
we have a lot of hats in the fire, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But I don't really balance it. I juggle it, is what I say to everybody that asks that. My husband and I started a real estate company um, 15 years ago, and it just kind of developed into me sharing our actual current home that we live in on social media, which kind of catapulted into a following based around design. I had my first book. Um, she made herself a home with HarperCollins, about DIYing and design and how to create a home of purpose. It was always like my goal to somehow get Jesus in there,
Yeah.
always. And so when they asked me to write the book, I said, well, it's going to have to come with creating a home of purpose based around family and faith. And anyways, that's kind of how I got started with a social media following. But as we adopted, my heart shifted to being so much more than sharing a daily DIY, or how to craft something. It was like, I can't hold this in anymore. I have to share our story, and continually share it. And it's changed on social media. You have to switch your niches and learn how to adapt to things and hope people follow along. But it's been great, and I think people appreciate seeing our family because it's different. My daughters are Black, so we're a transracial family. That comes with a lot of things,
Yeah,
um, especially on social media. But for the most part, it's been a great experience, which has
definitely.
led to this next book. I've always wanted to write children's books as a child too. It was be a mom, adopt, and write books.
I
It's
love
kind
it.
of come, but I just turned 40, so it's kind of taken some years to get there. But
Yeah,
without adoption, it wouldn't have led to this next book. But that's
yeah.
kind of our story. And yes, we do homeschool. We have for 10 years, and just kind of try to live a slower paced life at home since we both work from home, and just kind of soak it all in as we can.
I love that. That's so sweet. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm
Yeah.
just a little bit ahead of you in the 40s game. And so I get that where it's like I was doing the momming and all of that. And then the Lord was like, I'm going to add a little bit to what I'm
Yep.
going to have you do, which I think is really sweet. And his timing is good and perfect. I would love to lean into several of the things you just said. Let's start with just the question of you start a very similar story as well. I had two biological boys, and then the Lord finally opened up that calling to adopt, and that was able to be fulfilled. How has adoption changed your family?
For my kids, I'll start with the kids. My
Yeah,
boys, they didn't skip a beat. And I think that's what's great about kids. Um, I was like, we're going to adopt a girl, we're going to adopt a baby that needs a home. And they didn't even ask questions. It was just like, okay. Um, and I think that that's beautiful in learning and seeing the kids' reactions to it. For me, I mean, it's changed everything. I always tell people, understanding like the Lord's sacrifice and sending his son is so comparable to adoption for me.
yeah,
And seeing the mother's sacrifice. Not everybody gets to see the birth mother's sacrifice. With both of our girls, um, I got to meet the birth moms and be with the birth moms for a little bit, and just understanding that first to have to carry the baby when they had a
right,
choice, not
right,
not to, and then um, just being willing to give that such a sacrifice. I think people think, oh, I've done a great thing. I'm sure you get it. You've done
yeah,
such a great thing for them. Like, it's not that at all. It's like
right,
you want to reiterate, like, there is beauty and grief in adoption, and it doesn't start with beauty, it starts with grief,
yeah,
but it's also so beautiful. It's a hard thing to explain, but
yes,
it's changed my life in understanding God's love for sure,
yeah,
in all aspects. And then because my daughters are Black, and people always say you don't see color. Well, it just becomes so natural that you don't. Um,
that's true.
and then you also get hate for that as well, because
Yeah,
they want you need to represent their color needs to be represented, and we understand that too. But truly, from a mom's perspective, it's like, didn't I birth these two children?
right. That's my baby.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, it just becomes that, and so
yeah,
it's just it expands everything you thought about love. Is all I can say in
yeah.
all different ways.
Oh yeah, I
So
would agree with that. And I'd followed some of your Instagram page, and you had made a post recently just about some of the pushback and the criticism that you had received.
oh
Just
yeah,
and I'm sure that's probably just one example of different messages. We are also a transracial family. My daughter is Pacific Islander, and so it is very clear that she did not come from us. And so it is a challenge in navigating being in that online presence and wanting so much to use your platform for the glory of the Lord to share with others, like our listeners today. I mean, we it can be very isolating to be adoptive families because people don't understand just even what you were saying. I'm like, I understand exactly what you're talking about, how it changes you, the beauty, the grief, the balance, all the things that we carry as adoptive parents. And then you have that added element. If the child clearly does not look like you, there's this pressure to honor their culture and their family of origin and all of that. So what has the Lord taught you through even some of the hard criticisms and how you've had to wrestle with that and respond to it?
I definitely do wrestle with that all the time, because um, I don't know how much kickback you get, but the hate that comes with having a Black children and being a white mom is that I'll never understand their culture. I'll never be able to do their hair the right way, or
Right.
and that can get in my head a lot. We already have pressure as moms, period.
Right.
Or do we lay down at night? Did we do the right thing? We shouldn't have yelled that way, or I should be doing more for them. Anyways, on top of, well, maybe I will never understand their culture, and I can never be enough, and that kind of thing. And then I just have to like stop, like
Yeah.
stop the thoughts. The Lord put them in your life. You are able and capable, and give yourself grace. And my girls are 4 and 7, so they don't quite, they know they're different, obviously.
Right.
And that was one of the main reasons I wanted another racial mirror for for the baby. So we fit in. When I got the baby from birth, and then our 7-year-old came as a 4-year-old. So she kind of
Okay.
bumped in the middle through
Wow.
adoption care. Her mother was pregnant again and couldn't take care of both of the
I see.
children. So
Okay.
we got her as a 4-year-old, which is a whole different outlook
Yes.
from a newborn.
Right.
But yes, the criticism is tough, but then that comes with any kind of platform. And I feel like if I wasn't being heard or seen, um, I mean, I would just sit at home, and this is my platform, and the reason I'm here is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
God wants me to share it with the criticism or with not, and I just think at the end of the day, my girls will know they're loved, color or not, hair perfect or not,
Right.
and I think that's what they'll carry with them. And when they do get to a place where they're needing to talk about things, and we're willing and open to do that. We've always been open with them.
Yeah.
Um, I think them having each other has helped with a lot of questions and feeling alone. They don't really talk about it much. We live in a pretty white rural Tennessee county, and
Sure.
so finding it's always the pressure on me to find some kind of community for them, and
Right.
um, and that's important. I know it's important. We just haven't, with their ages, gotten to a place where they've really started asking a lot of questions.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. It is different, I think, just with all of the tension in our culture, and they do
Mm,
tend to hone in on that specifically. We haven't experienced quite as much of the backlash with our daughter being Pacific Islander, but there is that. It's always in the back of our minds as moms and as believers, right? Because we want to
mm-hmm.
honor the body of Christ, regardless of the color of the skin that He created. It is all beautiful, but we live in a broken world where sometimes it doesn't matter what we do; it's wrong, and
Right,
that is an added pressure for us as moms. And I think you and I are kindred spirits in this. Like, I'm just trying so hard to get it right, and it's
right,
just exhausting in your heart sometimes to do all the things and to be what everybody expects you to be, but yet there's that facet that just no matter what you do, you can't please. And so what has that done for your faith, Rachel, and just learning to surrender that and to give it back to the Lord?
I think again, it comes with grace upon grace. I think that um, I have to remind myself that I was called for this, and that He put the whisper in my spirit and my heart. And I always tell people, like, if you have the whisper or call to adopt, it's not normal. Like, you don't, that's
Right.
something that God gave you. Like, I've
Yeah.
had so many women tell me I didn't pursue the whisper or the call. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I hate that for them, because they carry it. They knew
Right.
it was there, and they carry it. And I just say to people that, get so bound by the financial aspect or the timing, or like, just do it. It'll work out, it'll happen. The Lord will provide. And I think that's just a reminder to me that, the grace for the situation. I'm here for a purpose, a reason. Um, it's completed our family, and the girls do have an amazing life, and where they would have been is not where I would have, that's not where they belonged, and that's not where the Lord wanted them. And so I have to remind myself of that constantly, that this is what I was called to do. And so that teaches me a lot about faith, and just that through our girls' stories, we had to have a lot of faith. As you know, adoption
Yeah.
is is having faith. Even through our second adoption with our 4-year-old, we had a whole 2-year trial with her father, who was nowhere in the picture until ever. Anyways, it's a whole story, but
Yeah.
we had to go to court and spend a lot more money. And it was just the hardest time in my life to have faith that she was here in our home for a reason,
Yeah.
and that she would stay in it, and just to surrender that. And so it's taught me a lot about faith
Yeah.
in all scenarios. But I'm thankful, and again, I wouldn't have gone into the call or fulfilled it if I didn't think the Lord would equip me to do so. So
Right. That's so good.
that's
I love.
really what I've learned.
As Christian parents, we all want to be praying for our kids, but knowing what to pray can be really hard sometimes. That's why Christian Parenting created its newest resource, a great Cloud of Witnesses prayer journal. This is to help busy parents like you and me to intentionally pray over our children and their faith all year long. This weekly journal walks through the lives of faithful men and women in Scripture like Abraham, Sarah, Moses, and Rahab, who all trusted an extraordinary God. It helps you to pray boldly for your kids to follow in their footsteps, grow in godly character, deepen their faith, and trust in God's plan for their lives. And bonus, every Monday on the Pardon the Mess podcast, host Courtney DeFeo will be praying through the journal with you. You can visit cpgive.org and use code CLOUD to get your special podcast listener discount. That's cpgive.org, code CLOUD. Now let's get back to the conversation. I love that. And you talking about that whisper, because we do, our call to love audience is families like ours who are in the midst of the calling, and then families who are wrestling with that nudge, that whisper, and all of the things and all of the questions. And it can be overwhelming. But I love your advice of just do it. We were very fortunate. We've had 12 processes in over a decade, and only one of those came to fruition. But I have to look back and go, those weren't wasted. There was still
Mm-hmm.
lessons to be learned, faith to be built. There was a purpose in all of that. And I know that's a big part of, the platform that you want to use with your story is just purpose. And so how has your purpose kind of evolved since, starting out as mom to biological boys, and then the Lord introduces adoption. You're in the throes of business and marriage and homeschooling and adoption, and just walking in obedience to the Lord. How has purpose shifted for you to where you are now? And 40 is a big age, and so I get that.
I
So
know.
where
I'm
are
trying to
you
figure it
landing?
out.
Right? Exactly. Where do you feel like
Um,
your purpose is right now?
well, like I said earlier, it was all about decorating and DIYing and creating a beautiful home for a purpose. And that's totally shifted with adoption. And I say that because it just changes your heart completely. And I felt like I could not share it. So that's my purpose totally shifted. Not all the way. Like my foundation is to show people Jesus in our home, and a family, and what he can do in your lives. And so that just evolved. I'd rather say evolved than shifted. My story evolved, which we all evolve.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stick to one niche on a platform, when my story is so much bigger. So it just became and evolved with me and with our story. And I think it'll continue to evolve. And I'm just thankful to have a platform to share it. So,
Absolutely. I love that. So let's talk about the new book. It's absolutely precious. Louis and Laurie Empty the Sea. And this is a precious, beautifully illustrated resource. Tell me your heart behind it and what you hope readers will experience as they read through it.
a lot of people, the book per se isn't about adoption. It's just more about representation. Um, my girls, thankfully, right now there's a lot more representation for the Black community, and even in baby dolls and things like that, that I'm having to learn that they weren't represented like they should be before. And
Mm.
so having them in this book where you can visually see them with me as a white mom, it shares adoption in its own way. The book, though, it's about an adventure series. It'll be a series. The next one will come out in the fall. It's just kind of, if you remember the Magic School Bus or Berenstain
Oh,
Bears,
yeah.
I always wanted to write a series. It was something about collecting them, or something in my heart that I loved. And so I wrote this book kind of with a homeschool nod, just kind of like teaching kids so that the girls empty the ocean magically and get to see what's underneath and, why it's there, oceans, volcanoes, etc. And so they get to explore that and understand it. And it's more educational based, but also for a younger base. There's a hidden picture on each page, and it's just a fun little series that my girls think they wrote, and it's
I
cute to
love
see them
that.
represented and also
Yeah.
share a bit of our story. And then proceeds from the book will go towards a waiting family for adoption. So
Love that.
that's
That's
as well.
amazing. And a workbook, as I understand it, right?
Yes, with each book, there'll be a workbook, kind of dives into the ocean, and you can ask your kids questions about it and kind of use it as I like to call it a study unit for school or anything like that. It's a coloring book. It's free with the purchase of the book online. So it's a good little resource.
That is amazing. I love that. And oh, I love when you're taking me back thinking of Magic School Bus and Berenstain
Yep.
Bears. That I love that. That's so sweet and something that we can look forward to. And I love that your heart is just for that representation. And we had the same experience in finding things that my daughter could identify with. She's more of a tomboy,
Hmm.
so she really doesn't love all the baby dolls and the different things, but we did feel that that was important, and especially in her
Right.
younger years. She's 10 years old now. And so now she's just all things basketball and all the preteen things. But at the time
Yeah.
it was a little bit more challenging to find, but I am grateful for that. And I love and appreciate your heart for wanting to encourage that just open conversation and representation, and then creating sweet resources that ultimately just end up in connection with our
Yep.
kids, things that we can spend time with them on. And so, Rachel, I want to give you the opportunity just to speak to our listeners who maybe they are feeling led or have been presented with an opportunity to adopt a child who does not share their same race, and maybe things that they're wrestling through, the questions, the concerns, all of that. What advice would you have for them?
I would have to say that I wrestled and I did all those things. Those things first are normal. You're not weird for feeling them. They are going to come with the process. It's hard to fathom loving a child that's not yours.
Yeah.
It really is. That was like, am I going to love this child, especially having biological children? Um, but just know that it immediately comes. It's very hard to explain until you've been through it. I'd
Yeah.
also like to say, if you're in the waiting and like you said, you had many no's. We had a few no's. We actually had our birth mom lost a baby that we were supposed to get
Oh, wow.
as well, and so we've been through the no's and the heartache of some of it. But I always say when you hold that baby that is meant to be yours, the other ones will make sense. The no's will have made sense to you. Um, and so I just say that, and the waiting is worth it. And the noise, the doubt, and the concern, and the all the fear, it is just noise, and the Lord will walk you through it. And so many people don't understand that the financial burden is tough. It's hard, but you also have to be able to understand the process. You don't pay it all up front. There's pockets of times of where you have to pay for things. And I've had friends that have had $0 and the Lord provides, and grants and tax credits. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that go into your brain. How can I do this? When can I do this? How long
Yeah.
is it going to take? And I think it's just so good to do some research. If you're like me, I like to feel in control. So the more
Yes.
research I do, the more control I feel. But understanding the process was very helpful to me. Um, but again, none of that can prepare you for your certain scenario because they're all so different. And that's why I think, like you said, grace and faith, and just kind of understanding that it will be a roller coaster of
Yeah.
emotion, of not knowing. And I think if you can just try to prep your heart for that, that's the best advice I could give. And just
Love
know
that.
that your turn will come and the waiting will
Yeah.
be worth it.
That's so sweet. I love that. And you had shared earlier that you did have the opportunity to meet and spend time with your daughter's biological mothers, sharing a different race and anything. What advice would you have for relationship with bio mothers and maybe seeking advice from them and parenting a child of a different race and culture?
Um, Honestly, when we first tried to adopt, we were going to do international adoption. And I wanted to do a South American country. I thought it would be great for the child to look more like me with dark hair, dark eyes. And then the Lord was like, nope, you're going to have two Black little girls.
Oh,
And so it kind of, and COVID happened, so we shifted to domestic adoption. Um, and anyways, the Lord had a different idea. I mean, we checked on our, box that gender or race didn't matter, but I would have to say that it is important to understand their culture um, for yourself, but also for the child.
yeah.
Like I said, my daughters are 4 and 7. I constantly have that pressure of trying to find a community in that way. I think there are plenty of women that are willing to help and be there for you if you just ask.
Mm,
I think also just being open to other races as well. A lot of people get real honed in on a gender or a race, and it scares them. And again, I want to say, like, if your heart's called to adopt, be open
yeah.
to the child the Lord wants to give you.
Yeah.
Um, and other than that, I'm still learning and growing. I know how important, like I said, their hair is to them. It's their crown, is what so many women have told me.
Oh,
And
wow.
learning that's such a learning curve for me. And I just think trying to understand it the best you can is all you can do.
Yeah.
And understanding who your children are. And with the birth moms, when we got our child as a newborn, it was COVID. I was the only person that could go in the hospital, and the
Mm,
birth mom did not want to meet me at the time.
okay.
She didn't even want to see the baby. It was one of those, take the baby, I'm done.
Yeah.
But something happened in the hospital, changed her heart, and I got to go sit with her for a few hours, which was amazing.
Oh, wow.
And both of our girls are open adoptions. I think that also scares people. They think,
Yes.
what does that mean? Is she going to come into our life? Is she going to do all this? And everything is different. Every family is different. Our girls' moms live in other states, so it's just a random text here and there, updates or photos.
Mm,
But it's keeping it open. Our girls know their mom's names and their birth mom's names, and that we speak to them and take care of them. We're actually able to purchase our daughter's birth mom a place to live, and so the relationship is there.
that's amazing.
And I think that's a beautiful thing too, to give your children, not necessarily even for you, but to one day say, your mom loved you, we still communicate. Be open to the open adoptions. um, they don't all look the same. No one's coming in and taking your child, but it
Right.
means so much to both parties, like truly. And so we do check on our girls' birth moms often, and keep that open. And that's been amazing as well for the girls and for us. And we'll explain that more as they get older, but my advice would be to be open to open adoption and races of any kind, because the Lord will give you what you need.
I love that. That's amazing. Yes. And, we stand to learn so much. And the Lord uses each of these uncomfortable situations and unknown situations to grow us in ways that we would not have grown otherwise. And so I love just having that humble, teachable heart and spirit. It's amazing to see what the Lord can do with that when we offer that to Him. So, Rachel, I'm so grateful for everything that you've shared today. And I know that our listeners want to, if they haven't met you already, that they would want to connect with you and certainly get a copy of this beautiful resource that you've created. And so, how can they do that?
My social media is Rachel Van Kluyve on across the board. My website's rachelvanklyve.com, and my books are on Amazon. So I'm usually there, show up every day somehow.
I love it. It is such a sweet platform. I have really enjoyed just spending time on it myself as an adoptive mom. And so, friends, I'm going to have those links in today's show notes. So I'd encourage you to hop over and check out more of what Rachel is up to on the day to day. And it has just been a pleasure getting to meet you, and
Thank
just
you.
blessings on what the Lord has next for you. And
You
uh,
too.
thank you for being my guest today.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.